the whack was my Achilles snapping. And in that moment, my 2024 Olympic dream was just done, over. I want to do my best and I want my best to be better than everybody else's. Like, that's what I want. And if it's not, I'm fuming. And I need to figure out how to fix that.
Hello and welcome back to Dive Beyond Sport, the podcast where performance meets humanity. Today's guest is Jazmin Sawyers. Jazmin, thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited for this.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
So Jazz, to get us to kick us off, there's an amazing video on your Instagram. I think it's pinned, and it's from 2 or 3 years ago, and it's from, I think, when you won in Istanbul at the Indoor Europeans, and you jumped 7 meters for the first time.
Yes. Yes.
And obviously that's a massive milestone for anyone that knows athletics. That's like a big deal. So I just kind of thought it'd be cool to just kick us off. If you could kind of just take us to that feeling. If you watch the video, it's kind of obvious how you're feeling, but nevertheless, if you could just like explain like what was going on emotionally then.
Yeah. So it was March 2023 and I'm at the European Indoor Champs. I've historically not been great at indoor competitions. And when I look back, I think that's just because of the way that coaches that I'd been with had planned the year. They were more focused on outdoors, etc. And even with this, I was more focused on the outdoors. So I wasn't expecting anything huge from the indoor season. I'd just moved coaches about 5 months before the championships. And I had changed my technique, something that I'd wanted to change it to for a couple of years. I think 6 months prior, I had won my first international medal in 6 years. And that moment really, the sort of 6 months prior, changed everything in my own head because I was creeping away from the idea that I was still capable of doing that. Because 2 weeks before I'd come fourth at the Commonwealth Games and was thinking, it's been 6 years, is this even possible? But it was. I got a bronze at the European Outdoors and then changed coaches, moved back home, and decided to go ahead with an indoor season because training had been going well. And when we meet in the video, it's round 5 of 6 of the competition, and I had just been pushed out of medal contention. So I'd spent the whole competition either in silver or bronze, and somebody had just come past me and pushed me down into fourth. And I had this new confidence from the previous medal and from the indoor season as a whole. I'd already had an indoor personal best. I'd just been hitting marks consistently that I found hard the year before. And so I'm standing on the runway, I'm saying my cues to myself out loud, knowing that this was a really specific opportunity to do well. I'd had 2 fouls in the competition, 2 fouls that I knew were big enough to take the lead in the competition. And I'd never won an international title before. So I'm thinking I'm actually good enough today to win this, to get my first title, to get my first gold medal. But I've got to say, 7 meters wasn't on my mind. It truly wasn't, because I didn't think I was in that kind of shape. I knew the fouls were good. And I think in the competition already, I jumped 678, maybe 681 or something like that. But I think 682 was coming third. So in the video, you see me talk to myself on the runway, run down, jump. And then I'm standing and I'm fixed on one spot. And the spot I'm fixed on is the board where the numbers come up to show how far you've jumped. They took forever to show the mark. And just, it's typical on one of those. At first I was waiting to see if it was a foul. And what I'm fixed on is the board that shows the numbers of what you've jumped. And so I'm looking at the last 2 numbers because what I'm expecting to see and hoping to see is something in the 690s. If I've gone 691, it's an outright PB and I've taken the lead. I think 689 would have taken the lead. So I'm staring at the far right side of this board, hoping to see 89 or up. And again, it's taking forever. I'm staring. I'm sort of pacing side to side. Coach is in the stands laughing at me because he knows how far it is because he's seen my other fouls. He knows. He is not surprised in the slightest. But I'm staring at these last 2 numbers, waiting for something to happen. And it finally comes up and I see 0, 0. And for a split second, I don't know what I'm looking at, because what could 0, 0 mean? Why would there be a 0 there? What? And then, of course, the eyes glide ever so slightly to the left. I see the 7 and completely lose my mind. Because 7 is just, it's one of those numbers that in women's long jump will pretty much these days always guarantee you a medal. If you could jump 7 meters, you are fighting for a podium spot every time. And it's something that I had believed I could do for a decade at that point, but it hadn't happened. And every year it doesn't happen, that self-belief, which is there, just starts to get eroded. And it's really difficult to maintain the same level of belief without the proof. And, you know, I had a video of myself from when I was 18 fouling over 7 meters. And over that decade, I watched it and watched it and watched it just to remind myself, like, this is real. You have a reason to believe this. This hasn't been plucked out of thin air. But it's difficult when another year goes by and you think you're in the shape of your life and it doesn't happen. So in that moment, I see 7 meters come up on the board, and it's so validating that everything I've believed about myself, well, not everything, but one thing that I've believed for a long time, I was right. And it kind of, that adds to the belief that you have for other things. So other stuff that hasn't happened yet, I now think, well, I was right about that, and that was a really big thing. And for years, loads of people assumed that I was wrong about it. And so it was a huge moment. One, because I ended up winning the competition, my first title. Two, because it was a British indoor record. So, you know, my first national record. But 3, really because it cemented that belief in myself that I'm right to have faith in my own ability. My coach did, it was round 5, remember, of 6. So coach did immediately tell me off and tell me to go back to the start of the runway, because there are women here who can beat that. But I got lucky, nobody went any further. It was a tight competition. I think all 4, I think the top 4, takeoff to landing, all jumped exactly 7 meters. But I was right on the edge of the foul line. So I was closest.
The sport and the way that you described it actually reminds me a lot of diving in so many ways, because it's about this like one execution, and you know, you can make a small mistake which results in the successful failure of your jump. But then it's measured subjectively, so there's no,
That scares me about diving, you know.
yeah, there's no judgment, there's no like discrepancy, like it's black and white. And I sometimes really hate that about my sports, that do what feels like a great dive and then you don't get judged well on it. It's really tough. But I went through my entire career not winning an international event, and you waited a long time to win your first international event and major title. For me, first of all, the winning was never what I was aiming for. I wanted to make it to the Olympics. That was my goal. That was my dream. And I was able to achieve that. So I'll never look back and think about my career as a failure. It would have been amazing to stand on that top step and hear the Jamaican national anthem at least one time. It would have been so cool. But there were some occasions where, you know, you perform, you think you've done really well, and then it's just not quite good enough. And as you say, it just hits that self-belief a little bit. And we all go through waves as athletes, but what was it truly about you that allowed you to keep on believing through all of those moments, that kept you persistent and kept you on track towards eventually righting that wrong, jumping that 7 meters and winning your first international?
I have wondered this myself, to be honest. I do think it's quite a core part of my personality that I feel some things are truths. I don't know, you know, true things about everything, but I know true things about myself. And it just felt like it was true that I could do that. In the same way that it feels true that I still have so much more to achieve, which is why I'm still competing, which is why I fought to come back from an Achilles rupture at age 30. You know, I 4 years away from the next Olympics. I just feel like I have so much more to offer, and I know it would have haunted me. It would haunt me forever if I were to give up before I had to on things that I believe I can do. And so it just, even in the times where I was this close to going, I was wrong, I never truly believed that. Like there's something in my head, even when I'm throwing a strop after a competition, you know, Commonwealth 22, came fourth, had jumped at the time, my best ever championship jump, and still didn't get on the podium. And I'm saying out loud to people, you know, not everybody, not to the media, but to my family and friends, I'm done. Like, what's the point? I can't get on the podium anymore. But I still went to Europeans 2 weeks later. So I didn't believe it, because I know I now at this point have no interest in just going, you know. So I didn't go to Europeans to be like, oh, well, you know, I've made the team, so isn't it a great experience to make the team? I'm not interested anymore in making the team. Especially now I've had a taste of winning. I want to win. I feel like going for the experience, I have had the experience, but I haven't had the experience of winning. I've had the experience of losing many, many, many times. I'm not interested in having that again. So I am here to try and get more out of it, because I still think I'm good enough to do that.
That's super interesting to me, because obviously one thing that like really stands out to me about you, Jazz, is, and I want to kind of like, you know, bring this in early on, is like I feel like, you know, ever since the time like I first, you know, met you, and then always like following your story, there's always like so many like levels and things that you're doing, and all kinds of areas like to your personality and things that you're involved in, and like, oh, I've just done this, and oh, by the way, like I sing, and I, you know, make dresses, and I do all this, and, you know, releasing music, and it's just this like endless mix of things. And I know obviously you've said that like from an identity point of view that's helped you, like, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later on, but from an injury point of view with your Achilles that you mentioned, because you've got all these other areas to your life and your identity, it's not like everything was suddenly stripped away. But despite all of this, there's this like burning desire and passion towards sport and long jump and athletics still. And
it surprises a lot of people, because I think because I have so many other interests and I dive so headfirst into those other interests, like I really go after my other passions too. I think to a lot of people.
Well done with the pun, by the way. Diving.
Thank you. You know what? I was going to just slide past it. I'm so glad you mentioned it. Thank you for actually bringing it up, because I wasn't going to do it. I thought that's too cheesy, but I'm really happy you did.
And I regret we actually released it today, which is kind of funny, but we interviewed Louise Bloor, legend. Yeah, we released it today, so she was
okay. I'll listen straight after that.
She's fantastic. But when I was looking at it, the recording back and reviewing it, she literally said like, you know, I was like overcoming hurdles, and I just thought like, and we never pulled her up on it, and so I just felt like, damn, you totally missed that. So
I could have said jump all the way into other things. I went for dive on purpose, and thank you, well done.
Subliminal messaging. That's what we're here for.
Maybe my T-shirt.
I'm sure you can remember where you were in your story.
Oh my God. I think because I do so many other things and so publicly, to a lot of people, that looks like a lack of focus on my main goal. And I understand why it looks like that, but I don't mind, because I know that it's not. I know that my interest in other things and my hobbies don't take away from me as an athlete, and don't take away from my very serious, very, very big goals in athletics. But yeah, it's a normal response I get when people are like surprised that I am like aggressively ambitious within athletics. And also like I'm out there having fun. And so I think some people don't associate the fun having person with aggressively wanting to win. But what most people don't see is me post competition, which is a very different situation. I looked back, and it's really sad. And I think last year I tried to remedy this. I look back at every major championship apart from Istanbul, and probably my first 2 other medals. Every other major championship that I've been to, I've walked away disappointed and sad and genuinely like upset, because my goals are so much higher than the level of achievement that I had managed at those competitions. And I've actually probably ruined a lot of really great experiences for myself with that attitude. I think about the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. Everyone, all my friends talk about that as like one of their favorite competitions. And I have no positive memories. I'm so sorry, Gold Coast, because I did so badly. I ruined it for myself. And I really try not to do that now. But I take steps to actually go, okay, we're going to assess the situation of the competition, and then we're going to try and park it. But I find it really hard because I care so much about doing well. I also find it then hard to talk to children sometimes because, I know the message that parents want me to give them is that try your hardest and it doesn't matter how you do. I don't believe that, at least not about myself. Because that's not what I'm doing it for. And some people are, which is, I actually am jealous of people who are able to sort of compartmentalize in that way and go, I just want to genuinely do my best and I don't mind what happens. I want to do my best and I want my best to be better than everybody else's. Like, that's what I want. And if it's not, I'm fuming and I need to figure out how to fix that. And so it's a really good thing because I think it will get me where I'm trying to go. And it's gotten me, I think, in certain situations a lot further than I had any right to go. But it's also, it's meant that I didn't enjoy either Olympics that I went to as much as I think I should have because I was too annoyed at the result. And when I look back, the first one especially, it was a great result. I did really, really well. I came 8th, made the final, outperformed my rank by loads. But that was my first major championship where I hadn't won a medal. And I was just expecting to win a medal. I'll find a way. It's my first one. So maybe I won't win, but I'll find a way. That was what was going on in my head in Rio. So I came 8th and I walked out like, what just happened? Like, how could it be? And now, a much more experienced athlete, I very much understand how it could be when I watched myself run back in 2016. Tragic. I can't believe I jumped as far as I did running like that. I can see why, babe, like that, you got some learning to do. But when I did that 7-meter jump, at that point, like, I'm actually finally good enough now. So then anything past that, where I still don't achieve, we have way less of an excuse because I'm good enough. So it was something that I did wrong, If I'm actually physically capable and then I go and I choke, that's on me. And so then I'm, okay, I need to solve this specific problem because I have all the tools and somehow I'm not putting it together. So I'm very hard on myself when it comes to competition. And I try and reserve that for championships only. Because otherwise you have no fun all year. And, I've been going into my latest competitions over the last year with very specific targets, not necessarily every single one to be winning or jumping a certain distance, but do this thing right. And that's a success. And that's really helpful in the season. It didn't work at the championships. I was there this year just to make the final because I was coming back from an Achilles rupture and I didn't do it. And people have talked to me, sorry, I've just been yapping, but people talked to me about last season, which was my comeback season from an Achilles rupture, and talk about it as a huge success. And I understand why they say that. But I had, I think, 4 goals for the season. And I didn't achieve the final one, which was to make the World Championship final. So it wasn't a success. There were successful things about it, but the season wasn't a success because everything was building up to that. The whole point of all the other goals along the way was to make the final at the World Champs, and I didn't do it. So to me, that's a failure of a season. I'm not a failure, and that's a big distinction that I now make. And I used to feel like it was me, the person, that was a failure. I don't do that anymore. But I will not shift from my own understanding of the season. I failed. Because I failed at my goals. If you have a goal and you don't achieve it, you fail at the goal. I'm sure you've achieved other things like learning stuff and that. Cool, I've been learning. We're here. We've been here for so many years. Yeah, I love it. Learn. Let's win, eh?
You've taken us on a journey there, first of all. And so much of what you've said resonated so strongly with me for so many different reasons. Although that being said, if we're talking the spectrum, like you're here, and maybe like not quite as far in terms of that intensity, but I would leave most of my competitions feeling dissatisfied because I didn't perform to the level that I expected. I pushed myself to a really high level because of the people I was surrounded by as well. I expected a lot of myself. And, you know, sometimes I didn't give myself grace for my body shape and size. The fact that, you know, it was actually really difficult for me to be able to get to that level. My mindset was maybe slightly different in that I worked really, really hard. I wanted to put myself in the best position to give myself the best opportunity for success. But if I didn't achieve it, yes, I'd be frustrated, but I could accept that it wasn't my day. But I could look back on what I've done in the prep with no regrets because I've given absolutely everything for it. And I know, and I understand fundamentally that that is sport. Sometimes you have a great day, sometimes you don't have a great day. And, you know, it can be tough. In the other direction, in terms of your intensity as an athlete compared to, well, in addition to all the other things that you were doing outside of sport, that's another thing that resonated massively with me because I always felt that I was at my best when I was doing many other things, when I was super busy outside of training. Because for me, it was important to be able to finish my session, switch that athlete brain off, and then focus on the next thing without dwelling on my experience. And there was a really clear point where I realized that it was important for me to have that because I qualified for Rio, I went to Rio, I graduated from uni that same year, I came back, had a bit of time off, got back into training, didn't have anything other than diving, and I found it really, really, really difficult. And that made me realize, right, I need to be doing something outside. So that's when I started YouTube. So I started playing around the podcast and a few other different things. I even started coding on an app like Duolingo style on my phone and realized that very much wasn't for me. But I knew I needed things on the outside, and that's continued now. You know, I'm in high performance coaching, and I'm doing this podcast, and I'm still ambitious with things in Jamaica. Was there a point for you where you realized that having a number of different things going on was actually a benefit, or did you just know no different? Was it I just that's just what I do? What kind of side was it? Was it maybe an active decision or was it a subconscious thing?
It, I've only ever tried to stop being like that for very short periods of time. And what I find is that I'm sad when all I do is train and come home and think about training and, you know, don't do anything else. I am sad. And when I'm sad, I'm bad at long jump. And that's pretty much been a constant throughout my career. If I'm sad, I'm bad at long jump. And so maybe technically sitting down and doing nothing else all day is better for the recovery of this part of my hamstring, but I still can't use it right because I'm sad. And I think I was always encouraged, like from when I was a kid, to do loads of different things. And so that's always been part of me and part of how I go about things. And my first coach, the coach that took me to Rio, that coached me to Rio, really understood that about me. And he had a really good balance where he used to block out certain weeks of the year in red in my training plan. And it would be you're on lockdown on those weeks. You can't go traveling to do a gig. You can't be staying up late to do some project. I need you to be athletics only for these couple of weeks. And that I can tolerate because it's okay, it's targeted, it's specific, it's for a reason. It's not saying this is bad for you all the time. It's saying right now, I need all your energy targeted towards this. But I've taken that on kind of for my whole life and I've used that for other things. So when I needed to have my blocked out weeks for uni when I was graduating, and it was, you know, it was kind of a nightmare, I wouldn't stop training, but my priority would shift over to the uni stuff. These days, there's never really another priority because it's, you know, it's my full-time job and my life is about that. But I do still have those blocked out weeks for athletics where I go, okay, if you start a sewing project at 9 p.m., you can work on it till 9:30 rather than till 3 a.m. because you want to finish it. But that's, you know, that's certain times of the year. I'm getting better at that. I really am.
I mean, I spent a long time trying to figure out how you actually found time to do all these different things, and now I get it.
Yeah, the middle of the night. But there's only so much you can train for long jump. This is another thing that I think people overestimate how much time you can spend training for long jump. Like distance runners need to go out for runs multiple times a day. I can't be doing that. You know, I need to be so much fresher than that. There's only so many jumps you can do before your knees won't let you do any more jumps. So training it takes time, but it doesn't take up, I think some people think it's, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's not. So there is a lot of downtime, which I do plan in specific recovery activities, but I find my hobbies to be mental recovery. Like going and being creative and designing an outfit and making it come to life. That is being a person that does that, as long as I'm not going to bed at 3 a.m., because that's kind of silly, is then good for my training the next day. I really believe that. And there's been certain times where maybe a competition has gone badly and I've gone, that's it, I'm not doing anything else ever. And it just doesn't work for me. It really, really doesn't, to just be that kind of the message that we've had. And I know we've all seen it, of like being obsessed, right? And I actually wouldn't disagree that I am obsessed. I love athletics. Like, I don't know if we can, all the books behind me, there's a whole chunk of like old athletics. They used to do manuals basically of all the results from the year. It's so cool. They're so cool. Like, I love athletics. I don't think I will ever fully be away from it. But I love other things too. And that doesn't make me a worse athlete unless I let it. Everything's nuanced. It's not like you can just do anything you want anytime you want. Training is my priority. Recovering is my priority. And because I want to be the best in the world. But you can be the best in the world and have interests. Like, I just think the idea that that's not possible is wild.
I do think from already in this conversation, I can feel the obsession and the passion, definitely. But I love that equation as well, actually. I think of it like an equation. Like, if I'm sad, like, my jump is bad. It's just like very straightforward. But do you think that do you think that attitude towards doing other things, having other interests, is becoming more normalized? Because I think, because I think I made that mistake. Like, I don't regret anything. I achieved what I achieved. I still feel like I was an overachiever for my time. But that probably says more about my psychology than anything else. But I was sad during a lot of my training, because the fuel that powered me along primarily was feeling like I wasn't good enough, and comparing myself to other people, and then like letting that like thrust me along. And it did, but I also think it has its limits, and it also made me really sad. But I think that something that could have, and I also have always valued like other things. Like, even when I was a kid, I had this idea that like there was like a kind of a triangle of life skills. It was like master a sport, master a language, and master an instrument. And like, if you had this triangle, like, you were winning. But then the other two, like, I feel like eventually, like, I've actually got to that place, which is cool, and I realized that. But I didn't have that for a long time, and I remembered at times, like, I had to fill out like a questionnaire. I'm probably 18. What are your hobbies? And I felt so depressed, because I was like, I dive. Like, I'm not even going to university. Like, it's like, but I swear I'm more than this. But like, I couldn't feel that. But you do. That turned into a bit of a yap for me. But I think you do feel like that's becoming more normalized now.
Yeah, I agree. I think people are realizing that there isn't just one way. Because I think for some people, I don't think it's most people, but I think for some people, that kind of blinkers on, only doing their sport, only thinking about their sport, living and breathing it. I think there is the odd person that is the right choice for. I don't think it's most people. I think for most people, having those other things is so much healthier. And I think the circumstance where the single-minded obsession is good is when nothing ever goes wrong. If you never have a major injury, if you never have something that takes you away from it until you're ready to step away, then I'm sure, that looks great. And that sounds great. Yeah, I was so obsessed and I won, and then I retired when I was ready. Okay. Of course that sounds good, but that's not most people's journey through sport. Most people don't just win and win and win and win and get to retire on their own terms. And then do we hear from those people afterwards? If they were so obsessed with and single-minded with the sport, are they happy 10 years later? Have they found hobbies? Do they now have hobbies? Do they have other interests? Do they care about anything as much as they care about that? And that does actually play on my mind occasionally, because I don't think I care as deeply and obsessively about anything as I care about ultimately fulfilling my potential. And if I either do it or don't do it, either I do it, great, what happens next? Or I don't do it, I run out of time. But also then how's that going to affect me? I don't know. That's parked.
But do you think that you said fulfilling your potential, is that completely attached to athletics and long jump, or is that?
I meant my potential. Oh no, that. So I was talking about my fulfilling my potential in athletics.
Yeah.
You know, if I don't, I really do care about, because I've spent my entire life working on it, and so I feel like I want to get to where I've been trying to go. Because as much as I've had an amazing time, I didn't do this to have an amazing time. I did it to achieve the things I'm aiming for. You know, it's never been about the decade plus that I've spent. I didn't sit as a kid and go, I want to spend 10 years traveling around and doing competitions. As a kid, I said, I want to win the Olympics. And I've gotten to do all that, and that's a bonus, but that was never the goal. And I appreciate this is, you know, it's a bit of an aggressive take. So, but I don't think now I am as invested in anything else as I am in fulfilling my potential in athletics. But I'm hoping, and I think it will. I think that will turn to something else. But and I do have other interests. It's just that's the thing, you know. That feels, like I said, it feels like a truth. It feels like something that I need to, like, fulfill a truth.
This isn't an aggressive take. This is just what it actually takes to be a high performing athlete, and this is what
real. Yeah.
People don't really understand when you get into it, because again, completely resonate with a lot of what you said. And I've actually been through that exact same process. I didn't know what I wanted to do exactly after I finished my diving career, but I had an injury similar to you, came back from that injury, pushed on super hard to achieve the goal that I wanted to achieve, set super high standards, didn't quite achieve those standards, and had, you know, all these emotions that came around. But by the end of it, I was so then fully satisfied with my career. And also at the same time, I had a much clearer perspective of what I needed to do afterwards. But I wasn't thinking about that whilst that was going on. I put full focus on what I was doing at the time, because I knew what I needed to achieve. And then it was just like a switch. I retired and I knew what was next. And it was crystal clear. But the only reason it became crystal clear is because I had so many other things going on, and I was experimenting.
You're trying other things.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's loads of things I'd like to do after athletics, but there's nothing I want to do as much as athletics. You know, I'm really excited for the multitude of other things that I will get to do once I retire, but I have no interest in retiring.
But then that point will come clear at some point.
Exactly, it will become clear.
It will come clear, and you will know.
It's when we talked a minute ago about sort of feeling sad and how that can kind of have an impact on performance. I think sometimes I may have not worded everything as well as I wanted to, because there's feeling good, feeling bad, and feeling right and wrong, right? And there's times where I feel bad, but I feel right. So I am fully hating training. I don't like training. Let me just put that across. So we're talking about being happy. I don't like training. I don't want to go there. I don't.
I feel you. Jazz, this is the best, because this is just like no BS, you know? I love it.
Pure, unfiltered, and this is exactly what people need to hear. So continue.
I do not like going to training, but I feel correct. I always do. And I always do all my work. I do not skip reps. I don't skip anything. I get really annoyed when my coach pulls me from a rep because he thinks it's the right thing to do, and I trust him, so I do it. But I'm annoyed because I haven't done my session now. I don't want to do my session. I hate my session. But if you stop me from doing it, I'm annoyed. And sometimes I find it hard to give advice to younger athletes, because I get messages quite a lot being like, how do I motivate myself to go to the track? And I'm like, I don't know how to answer that question. I don't want to go, but obviously I'm going. I just, if you have to think about how do you get yourself to go, this isn't for you. And that's really mean to say to a child, so I don't say that to the children. But it's true. If you have to force, how am I going to make myself train? this isn't for you. Like, I don't want to do it, but you just do. I don't have an answer for that. You just go.
Yeah.
What?
That is so true. When I've reflected on like what I think will make you a successful athlete or not, or successful, I guess, in anything, but I think that is probably like the primary thing. It was not, the willpower doesn't exist. It's not about willpower, because you made the decision, you made the commitment. Like, it was the same for me. Like, you would just train, and you would go, and I never doubted it. And I felt sad, but I never doubted it, because this is what I do.
Yeah. There's
you know what was funny? Sorry, Jazz. I was always able to do what you say, like just get myself up and go to train. But the time that I knew that it was time to retire was when a couple of times just before Paris, I turned up to train and I'd forgotten my trunks, and I never forget my trunks.
yeah, that's a tell.
And that one little thing just showed me my brain is not 100% there anymore. And that's when I knew it was time to make the call. And if things like that happen, then as you say, like, if maybe it's not for you, that's okay.
And that is okay. And it really is. And I think that's another thing, is wanting to make yourself the kind of person that is so obsessed with winning. I don't know that you can make yourself that person. And I think people sometimes are looking for advice on how to become that person. And if you're not, then you're not. I actually believe that. I don't think you can put the will into someone. We've all got stories of kids that we competed against who were supremely talented, who dropped off because they just didn't want to. And you can't put the drive into that person. And I think sometimes people want the drive. They'll watch a sports documentary and go, "Oh, it'd be cool to be like that." And I don't think it's always a good quality, because I think after a competition, I'm horrible. I had testing last week, and it didn't go as well as I wanted, and so I'm not nice. It's not nice to be like this a lot of the time. But this is the whole feeling good, feeling bad, feeling right, feeling wrong. Like, if I stayed at home instead of going to a session because I didn't want to do, I'd feel good, but I'd feel wrong. Whereas I go and do the session and I feel bad, but I feel right. When it's good and right, those are the dream days, and that's like 4 times a year. The rest of the time, I set up for right.
That was once every 4 years. It was once every 4 years at the Olympic qualifier. Saved it for the right time.
Wouldn't you rather that?
I mean, obviously, at the minute, like, where this, I know what you mean. Like, where this conversation is going, it almost feels like it's like, should you really want this? Like, it is a bit, it's kind of a fine line, really, isn't it? Between, like, is this really, what I want, or what advice I should be giving? And again, we spoke to an artistic swimmer called Giorgio Minicini, and he talked about obsessive passion versus harmonious passion, and how the obsessive passion was the issue to him, when in harmonious passion that's what you're kind of looking for. But I was thinking about that just now.
So beautiful. That's such a beautiful way to put it. How poetic. Wow.
He's Italian.
He's Italian.
Okay, yeah. Sure, of course.
Yeah, it was like incredible. I love that we both went there. Oh gosh. But again, I was thinking about that as you were just talking, Jazz. But then, what you're also talking about is good and bad, but right and wrong. So it also sounds, because the issue is like doing things necessarily for external reasons, or that can be problematic. And to some degree, I guess that's the case. But then also at the same time, you're saying you feel right. Like, even when you perform bad, you still felt right. And that, to me, also suggests that you're still very much aligned with your identity.
Aligned is so correct, yeah. Because, okay, it does sound external because I'm looking to win things, right? But ultimately, and I phrase it this way on purpose because I've done a lot of thinking about it, I want to fulfill my potential. And if it comes down to it on the day, I will know whether I did, I truly believe I will know when I've had my best day. And it's not that then I'll retire. It's that I will know that, that was it. And I hope that results in a gold medal. And or that that day is so much better than everything else that even when I have my down days, I can still win a gold medal, you know? But I think I will know. And as long as I feel that, I think I'll be satisfied. I will be gutted if that doesn't result in a global medal, an Olympic medal, a title. But I think I will be able to accept that. If I never am able to put everything together in a way that lets me have that day, that is what I think will eat away at me forever. Because I just want to. So I think I've just got bigger jumps in me.
If 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 that day actually doesn't quite come, and then in hindsight you realize that the day came, but you just didn't quite. But do you just genuinely feel you haven't had that day yet? Interesting.
No way. I've had. If I were to have a career-ending injury now, I am so grateful that I got that moment, that 7-meter jump, because I've had a moment that most athletes never get. It did all come together, right? I got a gold medal. I got a big jump that I'd been aiming for a long time, personal best, British record. It was a moment, and I got to experience that. And so many people just never get that, or they get a big moment where they've been trying to get for years, and it's still down the table. I got a moment. That was not my best day. I'm so grateful for that moment, and have held on to it a lot through my injury recovery, because I'm like, no, you've gotten to have that, and don't you want another one of those? I think it would be hard if I'd never had that win, on some days to be pushing through that Achilles recovery, because it was rough. But I knew what it felt like to get a moment like that. And I'm not even expecting my best day to be a moment like that. I hope it is. But I'm not anticipating it. I'm not expecting that. I think that was such a special moment. And that is a separate category to my best day, But I think it does require, like, pressure being on. It does require it to be some sort of occasion, because I think that's what makes a best day, is that you're able to respond in that kind of a situation. It all sounds very woo-woo when I talk about it, but I will know. And no, it hasn't happened yet. And if I were to finish my career without anything more happening, then that's why I would be so mad, because I never got there. And when I look back at, mistakes that I've made over the years, I think I have made mistakes, not necessarily knowingly. I'm lucky that I've still got time, that I'm still good, that I can still correct my mistakes and go forward and compete so much more. I think I've got years left in me, and I'm so grateful for that. But I would be so mad if I had to stop now for some reason, because I didn't get to have my best day.
We actually maybe just talk a little bit more about that Achilles injury.
Yeah.
So like a little bit of context, and then maybe just then like some of your emotions and stuff, like in the aftermath and that process of recovery.
So it was April 2024. Paris is in July and August. Paris Olympics, and it was just over a year after I'd done that 7-meter jump. And at the Olympics in 2021, 7 meters exactly took the gold medal. So, I know that I'm now ready to start approaching the levels that I want to be at. My best day could be coming. And I had just forfeited the indoor season. I'd never done that before in my whole career. I'd never missed an indoor season ever. I did it because I had a small injury on the other side that I could have pushed through, but that I wanted to get right for the Olympics. I wanted to be absolutely bang on, as ready as I could be. So I said, I'm not going to do the indoor season for the first time ever. And remember, I hate training. I just love competing. So that was miserable for me. Like, I did not enjoy making that decision, but I wanted this. I wanted this Olympic Games. So we're in April. I've missed the indoor season. I'm all healed. Everything is fine. I'm on training camp, and things are going really well. I'm in great shape, and we're headed towards the summer, like in the kind of shape I will need to have my best day. And I'm doing hurdle jumps one day on training camp, and I go to take the hurdle. I hear a whack sort of sound, and I feel a whack on the back of my takeoff leg. And what I think has happened is that I have jumped over the hurdle, hit it with my other leg, and it's bounced off the back of my takeoff leg. I go down to the floor because I'm kind of like that. Everything feels weird. And the physio comes running over. And as she's running over, I'm thinking, okay, that's not what's happened. So I asked the question, I say, did I clip the hurdle? And she just looked at me and went, you didn't touch it. And so then at that point, I immediately know what's happened. The sound was my Achilles snapping. The whack was my Achilles snapping. And in that moment, my 2024 Olympic dream was just done, over. The next question I asked her was, am I done? Is my career over, or can I come back? You know, at the time I'm 29, I'm about to turn 30. It's 4 years to the next Olympics. I'll be 34, and I've got to recover from an Achilles rupture on my takeoff leg. Because I didn't even need to ask her. Like, I knew what I'd done then. And she goes, no, you can come back. You can. She couldn't have known that at that time, but bless her for saying it. Because then I was like, okay, well, then it'll just be LA. And my coach came over. My coach wanted to retire after Paris. He's been trying to retire for about 10 years, allegedly. And he came over, he saw what had happened, and he sits down with me on the floor. I'm just on the ground. You know, we don't have crutches, we don't have a boot yet. I'm just on the ground. He comes over and takes my hand and goes, well, I guess I'm coaching till LA then. And so he didn't retire after Paris, because I think he believes as much as I do that I've still got plenty in me. And so the journey just it began right there. I started doing visualization right there and then on the floor, because I was determined not to be scared to use that leg when the time came. The time didn't come for, 8 more months when I had to do any running on it, or 10, 11 months before I did a takeoff on it. But when it did come to that, I was not scared. I was desperate to actually do it in real life instead of in my head. By that point, I'd done it thousands upon thousands of times. But by the time I even got to the plane to fly home to have the surgery, I'd probably done it 100 times. I was going over doing the exercise that I was doing when I got hurt, and then doing long jump takeoffs. Because it was on my takeoff leg, I'm thinking, I'm going to have to slam this into the ground. I need to trust this leg so much. So I just started doing it in my head, knowing it would be a long, long time till I could do it in real life. And to be honest, I say that I had the most fortunate Achilles rupture recovery ever, because I had in my friend and training partner, Kat Johnson Thompson, she did hers in 2020 on her takeoff leg, and then was world champion again in 2023. And so I have in front of me at training every single day evidence that you can have this injury, come back, and still beat everyone else in the world. I also had her to ask every question I could think of, and she graciously answered every single question every single time. She was like a huge part of my recovery. And then on top of that, I had Michael, who was my S&C coach and has been for years, but he also rehabbed Kat's Achilles. So they were in a rush because they had to do it in 7 months to get her back to the Olympics, which they did, which is outrageous, by the way. But I wasn't in a rush. So I was able to get all his knowledge from that, a successful rehab that was done in 7, maybe 8 months, and apply it to me slower. And just, there was no rush whatsoever. And I was only doing 1 event, not 7. So I had the best possible scenario, really. I was really, really lucky to have ruptured my Achilles amongst this company. And so it was just, I think because I'd never had a major injury before, I didn't know what it was like. I'd never gone from not being able to walk to being able to long jump since I was born. That was the last time that I was doing that transition. And so it was almost, and I would never have wanted it, but it was almost nice to have a new experience as a 30-year-old athlete. It's not very many new experiences that you get. And I was relearning things the right way that you can't get that any other way. Because it was a brand new tendon that didn't exist before. Well, they had to knit it, but they had to go and find all the pieces because it exploded. It wasn't a nice, clean snap. The scar is long. I was going from the first time I tried to apply force through the foot and calf. We had a like a force measuring thing that we were using every single day. I would apply 100% effort with pushing down on it in the longest position. So I'd like point my toe and then try and force it, because that's the weakest position. And so that's where you need to try and build force to be able to run and trust the calf and the tendon. And the first day that I tried it, the force was 6 kilograms at absolute max effort. And before I could start doing any training on my feet, it had to be above body weight. So there on day one, it seemed so far away. 6 kilograms. Okay, how? Because I am pushing absolutely 100%. Maximum effort, 6 kilos. But it did. I have never experienced progress like progress recovering from a surgery where you can't walk, because every week is different. Every single week, you're so much better than last week. We're not used to that. You guys know, when you're at an elite level of sport, the tiniest bit of improvement takes 3 months sometimes, because you're already so good. So I hadn't had that experience of improving almost every single day since I was a child. So I kind of took it like that. I went, oh God, I'm so much better than I was yesterday. I'm so much better again. Wow, like I can do 8 kilos today. That's a third improvement. That's incredible. And it was that take, I think, bit by bit by bit, that was able to get me there in a positive headspace.
This is really scary, because literally everything that you're saying is exactly the same thing that I felt and went through when I had my tendon injury. I knee buckled on the board. I didn't know what it was initially. Thought it was like my quad just had tightened up. Turned out to be a tendon rupture, whatever. Got surgery a few days later.
Whatever's crazy.
Got surgery a few days later. But the same way that you had that switch immediately in the moment as to what you need to do to get back and how you could keep yourself in the same place, regardless of the injury, is exactly the same thing I had. I went through a rapid recovery. It felt so far away. My quad shrunk to like a twig, and I had to work so hard to get the muscle back. All of that, but then on top of that is what you said about the feelings that you went through during the process of, enjoying the rate of recovery. Like I remember on Christmas Day, it was the first day that I was able to lift my foot a centimeter off the floor, and I celebrated that more than I've celebrated any of my diving results before ever, because it felt, I just couldn't believe it. And then each day the progress, and when I first started to jump again and the dives getting better, like the rate of improvement was unbelievable. But mine happened at the end of 2022, so I had time to fully recover and get back and qualify for Paris.
Yeah.
Just over 12 months later. Yours couldn't have happened at a worse time in terms of the Olympics.
Almost.
So,
because what could have been worse is if there was a tiny bit of hope. If there was a lot of hope, if it had been 9 months, I probably could have, because I was already qualified. If it had been 6.5, then what do you do? Because you have hope. But it's ridiculous. At least I had no hope. And I just say that genuinely, not facetiously. Like, at least I had no hope.
Yeah, the decision's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like actually blowing my mind there, because what I was going to ask is, I felt a lot of gratitude for my injury, actually, because I went through those brand new experiences, and it felt amazing, and it made me appreciate my body, and it made me appreciate my love for the sport and all these years and effort that I put in, so that when I did go back up to the board, I could do some of these really hard dives straight away, again, regardless of my injury. Yes, you said that there's no hope, but was there any way that you could find any gratitude of that experience in that moment that's helped you today?
Oh, massively now. Yeah, being able to... Last season was one of the most magical seasons I've ever had because of my Achilles rupture. I got to experience athletics again like I was doing everything for the first time last year, because I appreciated it all so much. I missed competing so much. I did the commentary for Paris, and I thought, I was fine. I was fine until the long jump came on, and it gutted me. Yeah, it was getting ready in my hotel room that morning, just pulling on my normal clothes, whatever it was, and doing my hair, and like it was heavy on my shoulders that I should be putting my kit on, that I should be deciding, how am I doing my hair for this? Which kit am I going to wear? Am I going to wear the leotard today and then wear something else for the final, or do I wear my like? It was like, because I'd done this so many times, I knew how I would be feeling, and the fact that I couldn't and there was nothing I could do was painful, but it meant that when I did get to come back, everything felt so special. My first GB selection after my Achilles rupture felt like my first ever GB selection. That's how good it felt. It was for a smaller competition that is generally for development athletes, but sorry, development athletes, I wanted to do it. Basically, whoever's top of the UK rankings is allowed to go, but usually it's a development thing. And I was like, I'm going. But I felt when I went, when I was a teenager. It was special again in a way that it had. I'm reluctant to say stop being special, but you don't kind of celebrate the selections in the way that you used to, because I'm so focused on going and winning.
Because your goal is so high, yeah.
Exactly. And because it was almost gone, and I almost never got to do it again just because that's what happened. It felt so good to be out there last year. And so I'm grateful in that way. And I'm grateful to have built strength in different areas, to have learned a load of patience that, I don't know, actually, I was going to say the patience, but I've had another injury this year and I've been a nightmare. I think I used up all my patience on the Achilles. It's gone.
Well, it's like, I kind of know what you mean though, because and especially hearing you again, and I think back to some of my injury days, because I had this period of just like 4 or 5 serious injuries back to back when I was 13, or maybe 12 to 14, almost did no diving. Because the one injury, it's almost like it's this one clear storyline, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. And it's a whole crescendo. It's this thing that you're doing. I'm on the comeback. When you have a little injury, it's not big enough to be a comeback. And also, it's not new anymore. It's not this grand, exciting. I don't want to call it exciting, but you know what I mean. It's dull at this point, and you're just oh God, I've done the comeback thing. I was back. Why am I just at the end stages of that again? And the end stages are the worst bit, because as much as you're getting close to competing, you feel like you should be able to do more, and the improvements get smaller again. And so you're like, why aren't I good yet? Why aren't I really, really good yet? And that's what it's like getting a small injury. So yeah, the patience was finite. I was fantastically patient throughout 2024. That's over.
I love that we just said all this amazing value about injuries and how this, and then we just kind of smashed it all to pieces.
A clear run of training without injury is the most valuable thing any talented athlete can have. And I chose my words very carefully there, because when you are already talented, all you need to do is not get hurt. You need to have some years of training in the bank. You can't just be a child. But if you have your years of training in the bank, and then you are able to actually do your training, you're cool. Which is why I tell people all the time, stop trying to do that last rep. That last rep won't make you a world champion, but missing the next 2 weeks will stop you getting on the podium. It's not everybody. And some people talk about how they don't believe in talent in certain sports, and anybody can get to a certain level if they work hard enough. I think everybody can reach their ceiling if they work hard enough. I don't think everybody can. Well, it's the reason it's not true is because if every single person in the world was able to access the exact same training program, facilities, coach, someone would still win. So someone's better. So that to me, there is talent. Talent is there. And so if you have that, especially in a big way, and I believe, from this conversation, I'm sure you've gathered, I do believe that I'm very talented in long jump, I'm good at it. And I know now, my 7-meter jump came after 5 uninterrupted months of training, without an injury. I've never had that at any other point in my career. That to me is my most valuable thing, and that is advice I am happy to give to young athletes when they ask. It's like prioritize the not getting hurt thing. And it's a really abstract concept to somebody that's never gotten hurt, even in a small way, because it's usually the small ones, because the big ones are the big story, you know, you do, as we're talking about. It's the small ones that knock you out for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, or I have to modify my training for a month, where I'm still training, but I'm not doing the key stuff that gets you that tiny little bit on top of everything else. Injury is such an interesting topic. Like, everybody's had some kind of experience with it, but avoiding it, which again, abstract, is just the most important thing. I don't know for every sport, I can't speak for every sport, but it's the most important thing that I can do at the minute.
It's funny, I was thinking like, oh, maybe my final question to like this main bit might be like, oh, well, so what would your advice to the children be, you know, or to the young athletes? I know, you know, because we've kind of like danced around a few things and it's been a bit like, you know, against what most people might expect, perhaps. But you kind of answered it there. But I guess to sort of clarify that, would that be your primary message of advice to younger athletes?
I would want it to be, but they don't want that. It's boring and they won't listen. It needs to be more tangible than that. I don't think anybody at like 13 is going to like really take on board, do your best not to get injured, because that doesn't mean anything at that age when you don't know what that looks like.
Even me, right? I said I had a lot of injuries, and particularly like in my younger career, a lot of injuries, and as a senior as well. And I was still an idiot. Like I couldn't, like I hated not doing things, and I was the guy like doing the last rep and the extra one, and then you know, inevitably. And so yeah, I mean, it's true. I think younger me wouldn't have listened either.
I think it's pretty useless advice. I think it's better for somebody that has a few years under their belt and has experienced the missing out on a few weeks of training here and a few weeks of training there, and understand what that kind of feels like. And then if you have enough experience to track back and go, actually, at that championship where I think I underperformed, I'd missed a week that month, 2 weeks that month, and you start to add it up and it starts to make sense. What is my actual solid advice that people can realistically take? The advice I want to give, nobody like would want, like, go to bed. Go to bed. Will you please sleep some more? But like, that's so boring. They want me to tell them like a magic supplement, or like actually go out and if you do 50 sit-ups upside down every day, like that'll be it. Because that's what I wanted. I wanted like the thing that would make me the best athlete in the world, and there isn't a thing. But the sleep is so magic. Like you gotta go to bed, and even if it's not that you need more right now, get into a habit of going to bed, because you will really need it. Like you can do so much more when you're well slept. You're so much better at your sport when you're well slept, and I don't think many people know what being well slept feels like, because everybody's so chronically underslept. I think, you know, try and go to bed a whole hour earlier, then the next day try to get another half an hour, see what it looks like to add 2.5 hours to what you normally sleep. Like, are you sleeping as much as you want to say you are? If I ask you and you go, oh yeah, usually like 7 hours, that's 5.5. Like, I know you're lying. Go to bed. That's like my most tangible, but again, it's not one that I think people will listen to. There's loads. There's stuff like, but sorry, go on.
No, I mean, I was going to say, like, I feel like you're not really an advice kind of person, because as you said many times in this podcast, you wouldn't tell a lot of kids to do what you do, but actually, that's the powerful thing. You do what you do, and you've built yourself into this incredible person. And when Freddie just said that, you know, he wants to ask this final question to wrap up the episode, I forgot the time I was going, because there's so many more things that I feel like we could ask about. Like, we've not even touched on the voice or the law degree, like, right? And or what it was like to be mentored by Will I Am. You know, who's done that? You know, but I think what is important is everything that you've done, all of your exploits, all of your experiences, has actually turned you into a very powerful voice and a person who can advocate for a lot. And I saw when I was looking into this, you mentioned something about we haven't even touched on race. Like you have to earn the right to not be racially abused, or something like that. You said, which that I never thought about it that way as well, and that's honestly crazy. You are a very powerful voice for the people, and you inspire a tremendous amount of people. I remember when I saw the announcement about your Achilles, and then I saw your rehab videos and everything, and I know there are a lot of people that are inspired by you, which is fantastic. Is that something that you had envisioned to become, or is it just a matter of circumstance?
In the first place, no, that was not like part of the goal or the plan. But I've always been like an oversharer in general. So I think because I was like from the outset of social media, like for as long as I was on social media, I was talking, and I was really sharing, and I was doing my best to share it in a real way, because I, as a young athlete, was like looking for every bit of information that I could get on my favorite athletes. And it got to a point in my career where I realized that like I was somebody's favorite athlete, which is still like the coolest thing ever. And if I can give you an actual insight into what that looks like, how cool. And a lot of the time as an athlete is spent on your own. And so having a community of people that you are talking to and sharing with feels less lonely. So sharing online always felt natural to me. And then as a result of that, I then started to realize that people were listening. And so then you go, well, now I feel I have a responsibility, and it's one I actually quite like, to be saying useful things, to be saying good things, to be saying the right things. And to be, I think when you're an athlete and you're a successful athlete, you are by nature a role model to somebody, whether that's a good thing or not. Whoever you are, whether you're putting across good things, somebody is going to view you as a role model. And so not, as a child, I never dreamed of being a role model, but I did dream of being an athlete, and that's what comes with it. And so I want to be a good one. Like I really do. And I don't think everything I do is positive and good and makes me a good role model, but I do try.
It's real in the world of fake sometimes, and that's powerful.
It's hard because I understand why people don't want to share everything, because it can be used against you. And everybody has something to say, and it's a really fine balance between sharing everything that you do share being real, and then sharing too much because you feel like you need to share everything to be real. That's not the case either. It's a fine balance, but I very much do see that as part of what I want, to be a good role model, and to be putting positive things into the world and helping in some way. I get more than I expected from those kinds of messages where people say that this has helped them, especially throughout my Achilles journey. I've had a lot of messages being like, thank you for sharing so much of it, because it's been helpful to me. And some of that was just, me keeping busy and keeping my mind busy and documenting it for me. But it turned into, let me make sure that I've got a library here of what it looks like to recover from an Achilles rupture as an elite long jumper. Because someone might want to see it. And it turns out they did. And it's really, really sort of warming to me that people have been helped by it.
Well, and those are only the people who actually reached out to you. Like, you don't know the actual impact of the people. Because, probably like me, most of the time, if I'm being completely honest, I'm trying to engage more on social media now that I'm finally more active and actually sharing more from that I always wanted to share, but just never did through various reasons. And so but I'm one of the people that might just like, oh, that's great advice, and then just move on. So
yeah.
And I think that, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, I learned one thing that I really felt that when even like a friend of mine just said to me once, and this is the person that I'm not used to getting like social media feedback from. Like friends don't normally, do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, you have to kind of accept it's not for your friends.
Yeah,
you kind of pretend that they're not even seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then they said like, oh, actually, this thing that you talked about was actually that that video like pushed me to like start like doing this, vibe coding project that I've been thinking about for a long time. And I was like, holy shit, like that's
Having
it.
an impact.
Like that's why. Like even if one person is like, oh,
Yeah.
actually that's true, I'm going to do this. Like if one person feels that impact from something you do, like doesn't that make it, that makes it worthwhile. And then like my final kind of thought on that as well is like, I think every time, I feel like in a way everyone is a role model, because any interaction you have with someone, the other person will walk away either better off or worse off. It might be a tiny bit, it might be it might be loads, but like nothing is ever completely neutral. And I thought seeing things in that way was really powerful for me. Of like, so it actually is my responsibility, and that's a good thing to try and, in any scenario, to leave a good message or leave a good impact. Yeah, and really, really felt that obviously from your side, Jazz. I guess this is probably where we should end up this final episode. Yeah, and if you just want to if there's anything you just wanted to touch on before we do wrap.
Well, I mean, we just have to ask this.
Oh yeah, true.
Our favorite question, Jazz. If your career was a movie, what would the title be?
I've been thinking about this. I've decided on Jazz of all trades, because I want to, it's, right. But we twist it because that's used to mean someone that's like just okay at everything. But we're twisting it because I'm going to be good at it all. So that's the film. It's Jazz of all trades.
I love it. That's so good.
Yeah. And we'll talk about books in the bonus section, but I read a book recently called completely forgotten what the name of the book is, but it's exactly about
you can all find that in your local library, listeners.
Yeah, but the point is, oh man, I tried to go to my Spotify and it's not coming up easily, so we'll just deal with it. But so you have to wait to the bonus section for that. But it's all about like why actually different skills, it might slow your progress in the beginning, but then it accelerates. Range.
You know what? It's over there. Hang on.
Yeah, you're probably inaccessible.
Yeah. Don't topple the tower.
Gonna just hear a crash of books.
But for the listeners, maybe she'll show us, but Jazz has a yes. This
is it, right?
Yes, this is it.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so good.
I'm with you on it. I don't really read much nonfiction these days. I read for fun only. And learning can be fun, but like, again, terrible for kids. Don't want learning's not fun. That's not the message I'm trying to send. But this is a fab book. I really enjoyed this. Range by David Epstein. No relation.
Bad timing, Crikey. That's wrap.
But no, I remember when this book came out, Freddie, because like I wanted to read it straight away because I was like, oh well, this is just validating. Sorry, I keep tapping my mic. This is validating my entire existence, because it's basically saying the best thing you can do for the main skill you want is to like have other skills. And it makes total sense though, because I try and talk to people and like coaches, especially from other sports, because often in your own kind of tunnel vision, you do things how you do things and you never stop to question why you do it like that, because it's just how it's done in your little sector of the world. And people have such interesting takes. And sometimes I ask my mum to look at my, I know like not always, because I think it would stress her out, but like there's been times where I've asked her to like look at what she thinks is wrong with a jump, because sometimes I'm looking as a long jumper, and if somebody is looking, just going, well, that just looks weird. Why are you like leaning that way? I go, yeah, why? I don't know. Why would I lean that way? There's no need, and that's just how I've always done it. And so I think that can be useful. That is not, let me be clear, an invitation for armchair coaches to start sending me coaching advice. I will ask when I want to, okay? Let me be explicitly clear.
I think that was a wise call. Yeah, a wise call. And to just people in general, again, I don't think Jazz's like pure advice is to like ask your parents to coach you on your.
Oh no,
on your-
no. But sometimes to get an alternative perspective on something that you are used to looking at is great.
Yeah, to step you out.
I think you need to
step you out
write
of
a
that
book
box.
of. I think you need to write a book of Jazzy's advice and just skip the most like unsolicited advice.
Yeah, like you didn't want to hear this, but
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Anyway,
Well, with that said, yeah, we will wrap the main episode now. But I just want to say, obviously, I'm so glad we did this. I mean, we say this often, but this could, like Yona said,
every
I feel like
time
we barely
every time
scratched
it
the
becomes
surface.
every time
You
it
know.
becomes the best episode, and we've.
Well, that's what you want for your podcast, right? Is you just keep getting better.
That's it. And that's it. And but maybe eventually we'll do, Diary of a CEO 3-hour conversations. But we're not at that stage yet, unfortunately.
Tell you what, guys, you think you will know when you've had your best episode?
There we go. There we go. But I do also sincerely want to say at this point, like, obviously, thank you. And I genuinely really appreciate the honesty, the sincerity. It's like, it's, I think sometimes you can get caught in a place of just like wishy-washy advice. It's one of the risks you run with a podcast because you think you want to say like the amazing things or the good sound bites, but I think you touched on a lot of truths here on the reality of actually being an athlete, and you're not like just twisting your advice so that it suits a cool narrative, and I really appreciate that.
Well, thanks. Thanks for giving me the space to speak so candidly. I've enjoyed it.
No, thank you, Jazz. And that is where we will wrap up this main episode. So thank you so much. But Jazz will be staying around for one more dive. That is our bonus section. So if you're not there already, the link will be in the show notes. And otherwise, we will catch you on the next one. Thank you.